Hello everyone, and welcome to our circle and Salve Women. Today we are going to be talking about loving hard, and most specifically focusing on loving hard as a parent towards your children. Now, this is in connection with my article, and what I want to share with you is just some words of empowerment for those of you who are thinking about being parents or are parents right now and your kids are still a very young age, or that they are progressively growing into their own paths and you are perhaps thinking, okay, there are definitely some stages that I need to be aware of. Having 5 children, I can only tell you that I am of course not perfect. You know, I don't know anyone is and who is. And so for me, it's really more of understanding that in my imperfection is where I grew, is where I became stronger, and have thus become even more stronger as the path continued to take me on to different journeys. Every child is different, and I believe that parents who have had several children can relate to this when I say that when you put one on timeout to have some think time, really, parents know this, that when they have think time, you're also giving think time to yourself. You realize that every kid is, their perspective of that is different. So even something that small, you have to start thinking about, is this really something that is going to, make them think about their actions, or are they going to love this and is this going to fire back on me? Because there are times when you give your child a timeout and then all of a sudden you realize they could be there for days and they're completely content with, the punishment that you so-called gave them. Whereas another one, 5 minutes, and they are suffering, begging to get out, and they are sorry for everything they've done. And so really in reflection to that, just as an example, is you have to understand loving hard means you also have to be on your toes all the time. And when you are a parent, me being such a young parent when I first started, I was in the midst of college, coming out of high school and going right into parenting. I can tell you that for me, I was still growing. I was still trying to find myself, but man, did I love my children. I was always in paradise with them, whether they caused me the greatest type of challenges in life. I would not trade it for the world. And whenever I was with my husband, it was just, I didn't care for the world. It was my own realm of peace and love and harmony. And whatever that may have sounded like outside of my circle, it didn't matter. My circle was whole. It was complete. And as I had more, however, I realized, I remember telling parents, and again, this is just me analogizing everything in life, is that I had passed the 2-hand limit. When I had my first 2, I could control situation, and me being very controlling, I had one of these articles that I'll be talking about in the near future is addictions. The addictions we don't talk about. 2 of my addictions were really working out. That was my way of finding an outlet. And another one was keeping my home really in a state of just, in my mind, perfection. Because I always felt like that one time that I would let down, do nothing, and I'm relaxed, someone's going to come knocking on my door, and that's when my house is messiest. And oh my gosh, as a stay-at-home mom at that time, I was very blessed to be able to stay home at that time, and my husband's working. Here I'm thinking to myself, what if someone was to take note of messy home, and all this time that I had it clean, they didn't see those times, and yet they saw me at my worst. So I always felt like I had to be prepared. And so in the midst of me wanting to go work out, having some solitude to myself, or wanting me to have this clean home, there were my children who were in need of my love. And so the things that I used to do would be create a schedule, and how I wish I had kept my planner so that you could see how ridiculous it was. Literally, it would be the same thing. You could photo print the days and it would just be like, oh, okay, well, maybe that changed, but the same time. Like, it'd be like, go to the park on Monday. On Tuesday, it would be like, play science at home. And everything was perfected in that way because I put myself at that level. And when we tend to do that, reminds me so much of Big Mama by Martin Lawrence movie, where there's this mom that had like pegs on her walls and, couldn't have found one. And even if I did, I think with me, I've always been just tangible of putting it in writing when it came to a schedule. But, I could so relate to that, because I felt like by filling in those spots, I was fulfilling my role as a mother. And so when my husband was at work, he shouldn't have had to worry about us, because I was doing my wifely and motherly duties. And for me, it was everything that I felt I had to do. So when you love hard at that level, and everybody has different ways of loving hard. Don't think that that's what I mean by saying, oh yeah, that's the only way you can love hard. You know how you are loving hard right now. And so if you're saying to yourself, oh, let me tell you how I love hard, it's great to hear those stories within your spirit and your soul and your heart and your mind, because you're owning up to it, and this is me, this is how I'm loving hard. And many of it has to come from that inner self of going, okay, for me, I many don't know this, or perhaps only my husband, but I would ask myself, as I'm like losing sometimes, my way of thinking, I would take a moment, kind of like just walk away for a quick second. And for me, just being brought up to always have God in my heart, I would ask him, God, is this right? Is this how I'm supposed to be as a parent, and so forth. And whenever, there was never anything holding me back. It was like I had this energy, I had this drive, this determination to make sure that my kids were in line and, going in the right direction, away from any darkness, away from any troubles, and so forth. So I was always on guard, and I was putting so much energy into everything that now when I look back, there are absolutely no regrets. But then you have to question, wait, hold on. Did you take into mind that loving hard would mean you would not expect them to love you back? And that is what hurt. Because as they got older, the sparkles in the eyes disappeared, the shine and the jumping up and down and being gleeful and being happy that you made their favorite meal and you made their favorite dessert, or we went somewhere to get their favorite cookie and so forth. Those moments where you cherish so much. As they got older, it's kind of like, what next, Mom? What else can you do? And it was more that they took, for me, okay, my perspective is that you will start to see, and perhaps women can relate to this, even fathers as well, whoever parented the home, you start to see that they take note of what you're not doing instead of what you are doing. And it got to be this game of love. And I call it a game because in your mind, you're subconsciously scoring yourself on how you're doing as a parent without sharing it to anyone else. And it's such a damper to your spirit when deep inside, man, I did not get a 10 today. I did not get a 10. I don't even think I hit a 5 today. Like, I disappointed everybody, and that hurts so much. But as a strong individual, never wanting your children to see you in your weakness, you held strong and you kept it straight right here, and making sure that you were still going with the flow, because everyone's moving. No one's stopping and saying, oh, you know what, Mom, it's okay. We love you no matter what. It's more of like, no. I got to love myself. I got to be healthy, heart, mind, body, and spirit, because I cannot feed anything unhealthy to the rest of, those around whom I love. I got to keep going. And you just keep going, and not even realizing sometimes that you are just, you're basically your soul and your spirit is running on empty, and perhaps your heart, but your mind goes, no, just keep going, and you're loving hard, and you're loving hard and loving hard. And eventually your spirit and your soul and your heart goes, whoa, no more can I take this. And that last time that they say to you, not again, because you're not at Denny's at your table and you made maybe, some kind of a dish that one of the other kids didn't like. Because I tell you, when you have more than one, there's always going to be someone saying, I didn't want that today, and you're making your breakfast from scratch, you're making your lunch from scratch, you're making your dinners from scratch. And even if you didn't make it from scratch, you put effort into getting that onto the table, and the best you could with what you could and how you could, and yet you're getting those snarls or those silent moments where you're just not getting anything. Sometimes it felt better to just get up, no, not again rather than silence, because even in those silence you could read their dissatisfaction. And as time progressed, you were starting to get defensive quietly, because you had to survive, and you had to tell yourself, this isn't fair. I've given everything I possibly could, and no longer am I getting the sparkles in the eyes. I'm no longer getting these joyful moments of elation or excitement because we're going to the store today, and or we're going to the park today, or we're going to stay home and we're just going to have fun, we're going to watch movies. Next thing you know, as they get older, they say, no, I don't feel like watching it with you or dad, or mom and dad, because we were always one of those people who didn't watch TV, but we binge in movies. And then eventually they had their own lives, and they started to crave for more than what you were already giving them. What you were giving them was no longer enough. And so you kind of said, okay, that's fine, and you started to accept it. Sometimes you got defensive, then you realized that didn't get you anywhere, it got them further away from you. So then you tried to try something else, and as you continue, you just get into this moment of realization that you're not going to get back to that spark. You're not going to get back to those moments of joy where it was completely unconditional on their part and yours, because you just truly loved one another no matter what. And it was like you could do no wrong. But as they got older, they will remember the times where you were talking to someone because you didn't want to be rude, instead of watching them as they were doing their next stunt, their next move, their next, act. And they saw that you weren't looking at them, and so it was kind of like in their mind they were doing a silent -1 for mom. Or those times where they needed something and you weren't at your phone, by your phone, or that you couldn't get there because life, everything else was taking you, by the neck, and they didn't realize it. You're not going to share everything with your children because their world is about them, and that mom is a superwoman that can do everything. Where's the mom that always was there for me? And when you have like one or two, you could do it, right? And most of the time you're just like, I've got this, you got this, you got this. And then let alone all of a sudden you're like going to, you're no longer a stay-at-home mom. Like what happened with me, I transitioned. I was like, they're getting older. Let me now start putting my teaching degree into effect. And all of a sudden I'm focusing in on my students and everything else. Then you add in your spouse, and you add in sometimes investing in the friendships that you could put in. And most of the time, the friendships that I had for me was always about in relationship to my children. If they had children that could relate to my kids, then I made it a point to make friends with those moms, or the parents. Of course, just really mainly moms that would then get together with their kids. Now, when my husband was coaching, then you were like doing everything you could to get that going on the sideline, and making friends and sewing and just anything that you knew you had your power to do, whether it was those snacks that you made, just anything. You brought them in and let them play, and you made them whatever you could. And just birthdays, anything that you celebrate in your life, it was everything that really was within the realm of your child's joy and your children's joy, and no matter what, because I didn't come from that background where I was the youngest of 5, and it wasn't that I was bitter. It was more like I was determined to give my children what I didn't. And when you look back, you go, well, maybe I shouldn't have given them any of it. Like, you get to this point in your life as a parent where you start to ask yourself, if I hadn't given them anything, then maybe when I did, then they would continue on with that joy and that praise and that love for you and be grateful for every little thing you did, instead of always trying to make it big. Because then when you could not compete any and and top what you've done, then they're like, done that, been there, don't care for it anymore. And all of a sudden you're at a loss. And because of your silent resentment, And I'm going to use that word. That's a strong word. But as a mother, you start to feel like at a loss. And because you're feeling a bit defensive inside, your soul, your heart, your spirit wants to survive. All of a sudden you find yourself being silent, so that when they're talking to you, you're no longer hearing them, because when you talk to them, they're no longer hearing you. When they have a moment of excitement, all of a sudden you're not as excited for them anymore. There's this reciprocation that happens where you just become bottled down with all of these emotions. You're not doing it in a purposeful way, but it almost becomes your heart and your spirit and your mind, your soul. Everything's like taking over and going. Enable for you to survive, you've got to allow yourself to rebuild and rebuild. And so right now you're not going to be listening. Okay, right now you're not going to be doing. Right now you're not going to be feeling. Right now you're just not going to be saying anything. You're just going to be. And all of that then takes in to your children like, oh gosh, you've changed, and sometimes they'll say it, sometimes they won't, so it'll be in their actions. And so really you get to arrive at a moment where you are then saying to yourself, you are enough. And it is okay. It is okay not to be at a 10 every moment. And it is okay to no longer be that one person that can do no wrong. It is okay to be that one person that never gets it right. Because when you are loving hard, you know that you planted that foundation in them at the very, very beginning. And you have that faith to go, they'll get it. When they become parents, you want them to be just as good as you or better. And you want them to go, oh, I'm going to show you, what I'm going to be as a mother. And I'm going to do this, great. And you don't want to say, oh yeah, you just wait, just like my mother said to me growing up when I told her one day, I'm going to let my kids do whatever. You get to that point where you go, okay, I did my best, and I'm not expecting you to love me back, because love that loves hard cannot expect love in return. It's that they want the best for you. And if you walk away having having given you everything that I had, that is all that I can do for you. And I wish you all the best. I love you no matter what. And you are the greatest joy I've ever had, no matter how many tears and sacrifices and pain and, anything that I've gone through to build you up. I was there every step of the way, in every way that I knew how. So let's hope what I've given you today has really empowered all of you who are thinking about being a parent, all of you who are starting to raise up your children. It's around 6th or 7th grade where you'll start to see a transition where they start to become who they really are, or just starting to find themselves. And you start to go, whoa, I'm starting to see this change. Hang in there. Know that no matter what, they'll come back, and know that you're in peace with yourself. And at the end of the day, it is you and your partner that is that foundation. If that foundation is broken, then everything else is. So don't think that you are falling apart. It's just getting shaky. But no matter what, when that foundation is one, nothing can tear it down. And so be with it, be strong. In the words of my mother, God bless us all. Keep loving you, keep loving hard. Don't give up on it, because this is your circle and you've got it to the very end. Take care. We'll see you next time.